Parshas Chayei. And the name of the Sikha is Neiros Doilkos, me Erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos, lights that stay lit from one Erev Shabbos until the next, which of course was one of the miracles in the tent of the first Yiddish Mame of Sarah Imenu, as well as her daughter-in-law, her successor, Rivka. And we're going to learn a little bit about that miracle and how it connects to us. Okay, let's just jump right in. Benegea zu Sarah und Rivka erzählen die Chazal, als die Shabboslicht, was sie haben angezündet, haben gebrennt und geleuchtet mehr auf Shabbos le'erev Shabbos a ganze Woche. Our sages tell us that the Shabbos candles of both Sarah and Rivka stayed lit all week long. Now, that's an interesting chazal. That's about our holy imohis. But as you know, the Rebbe never allows something to just be an interesting fact. The Rebbe said many times that Torah is not a history book, although obviously everything that it tells us about our Ovis and Imois we believe is 100% accurate history, but the point is it's not only a history book. Torah is Meloshen Hero. It's an instruction manual. And even more than an instruction manual, Torah is actually, it's almost like, it's like talking about us. It's not just telling us what we should be like. Can I be so bold as to say that Torah is talking about what we are like. And even if we don't think we're like that, we really are. This is one of the foundations of Torah Chassidus, by the way. You know, when the Alter Rebbe was in jail, so he knew that the Kitrug was against Torah Baal Shem Tov. And there was that minister who asked him the question about Ayaka. And so the Alter Rebbe told him Rashi's Pshat. He said, Hashem didn't want to scare Adam. So the minister said, you know, what Rashi says I already know. I want to hear what the Rebbe has to say. So the Alter Rebbe said, well, if I tell you, before I tell you my answer, I want to know something. Do you believe that Torah is applicable to each person in each place at each time? And he said, yes, of course I do. And the Alter Rebbe was relieved because he knew that was one of the tenets of Torah Baal Shem Tov. And if this guy believed that idea, it probably boded well for the trial. At any rate, the idea of Ayeka, it wasn't Hashem speaking to Adam. I mean, it was. That's what Hashem said to Adam. But that's not the point. The point isn't this is historically what happened when Hashem spoke to Adam. Ayeka is Hashem speaking to you right now, right here. Okay, so anything we know about our Aves and Imois, it's not just something interesting to know about them. It's about us. And by the way, let me add, the Rebbe basically has the same rule when it comes to the Rebbeim, to the Nesiim. That if there's a story about the Rebbeim, it's about us. Just last week we had Parshas Vayera, and the Rebbe told that famous story so many times about the Rebbe Rashab coming home from Cheder crying when he was 4 or 5 years old. And instead of making that a story about how sensitive and how holy the Rebbe Rashab was as a child, which clearly, you know, that's obviously true, but the Rebbe used that story to say it's about all of us, and that today every single Jewish child can have the sincere yearning for godliness. And so we know something about our Heloki Mois, and the Rebbe is going to say this is actually about us, or at least it's about the girls. It's about the girls. So let's read. Der Zweck von Neder Shabbos Kedish is Shalom Bayis. The purpose of Shabbos candles is Shalom Bayis. I mean that it says in Halacha, it says in Rambam. It's a very, very, very simple reason, and the Rebbe remains within the simple explanation. Zu hereinbringen Lichtigkeit in Stub, literally to lighten up the house, to illuminate the house, in der Finsternis von Nacht, when it's dark at night. Why? Kedei me soll nicht essen zu der Shabbos in der Finsternis, was verschafft Zar, because we shouldn't eat our Shabbos meal in the dark, because that causes us pain. So the Rebbe is keeping it very, very literal, very simple. Man soll nicht gestreichelt werden in an eitz oder even gehendik in der finster, we shouldn't stumble on wood or stone going in the dark. That's what the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, that the Shabbos candles are so you shouldn't stumble on things like eitz and even. And there are meanings according to Drush that the Rebbe himself says in other places, but right here the Rebbe is keeping it very, very simple, that the lights are on, literally the lights are on, so that it won't be dark. Okay, now how are we going to make that meaningful to the children? So let's look inside again. Gleichzeitig bringt die Lichtigkeit von der Shabbos eigen Tayeles in dem ruchnisdicken Leben von der Yidden. This light also brings a spiritual benefit. Okay? And the Rebbe is not going to say metaphorically a spiritual light. At least at this point, we're talking about the physical light, but spiritual benefits that it brings. Again, the idea here is that it's very accessible to a child. This is not such an abstract concept. It's a very relatable idea. And the examples are very, very relatable. The examples are so relatable, you'd either have to be a pre-1A teacher to think of it, or you'd have to be a neshama klaus. Because how would you think of such like relatable examples in the life of a little child? Okay, how does the light of the Shabbos candles bring a spiritual benefit? Durch dem, was hat die Lichtigkeit von der Shabbos, kann lernen Torah euch bei Nacht. Wenn in Dreisen ist finster, you can learn Torah. When at night it's dark, but you have the Shabbos lights, so you can open a sefer, you can learn. Kann sehen und voneinander teilen zwischen kosher Essenwerk und nicht kein kosher. You can use the light to tell what food is kosher and which food is not kosher. What does that mean? You have food that's not kosher in the house? Well, it means, little kids. My kids do this all the time, right? Is this kosher? I don't know. I hope so. I bought it. I paid for it. Sure paid for kosher. They always, they look for hachsheder. Okay. What else? Can cooking in Siddur und sagen die richtige Brache. Benchen noch in Essen und so weiter. And he can look in his Siddur and he'll be able to bench. He'll be able to say the right brachas. So that's the spiritual benefit of the light. Again, we're not getting lofty here when we say spiritual. We're talking about physical light, very practical benefits, but that you can use to do Jewish things. Und wie bald die Shabboslicht von Sarah und Rivka Imenu haben wir gebrennt die ganze Woche. We had Shabbos, since the Shabbos lights of Sarah and Rivka stayed lit all week long, is der fun verstandig, so it's understood from this. Now, I wouldn't have understood it on my own. But now that the Rebbe says it, yes, I get it. And by the way, the Rebbe is training me how to think. Is der fun verstandig? If something is the way it was by the Avis and the Amayus, is der fun verstandig? As ähnlich dazu ist bei jeder jüdische Frau und Mädel, was zint Shabboslicht. So it must be a similar thing by every Jewish woman and girl. I didn't figure that out on my own. I didn't know just because this was the way it was with Sarah and Rivka, that this is the way it is with every Jewish mother and every Jewish girl. But is der fun verstandig? I mean, when you learn to use the Rebbe's logic, then yeah, you start to think this way. As chotcha filo di licht brennen nicht a ganze Woche begashmius, even though the Shabbos candles that we light don't physically stay lit all Shabbos long, bringen sie aber rein in Stube ruchnisdicke Lichtigkeit auf der ganze Woche. Now we're going to speak a little bit abstractly. They bring a spiritual light to the house that lasts the whole week. So by the Amois, the physical candles were lit all week. Okay, so by us, they go out after a while, but the spiritual light is there all week long. Was beleicht die Aufführung in Stub, es soll sein Leut die Anweisungen von der Mitzvah v'Torah euer. And what does that mean, that there's a spiritual light all week? It means that people have a light, a clarity of knowing how to behave in a way that is in accordance with ner mitzvah v'Torah euer. In other words, it just means that people are acting the right way. So the Shabbos candles sort of set the tone in the home, let's call it like that, which makes a lot of sense because a woman is akeres habayis, she sets the tone. The Rebbe speaks about that a little bit later. She sets the tone. So lighting the Shabbos candles really creates the environment and allows people to behave properly all week long, even long after Shabbos. Okay. Jede Yiddische Mädel hat dem Titul Bas Sarah Rivka Rachel Valeya. Every Jewish girl has the title daughter of Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Ot die Schlichus und Mitzvah von Beleuchten die Häus bemächtigt der ganze Woche durch anzünden Licht jeder Erev Shabbos und Yom Tov, Nacht, ist übergegeben geworden zu jeder jüdische Tochter gleich, wenn sie wird Bas Mitzvah. So the same shlichus that the Amoyas had to illuminate their home, that is given over to every Jewish girl immediately upon her entry into being responsible for mitzvahs, meaning at 12 years old. Und ihr Erziehung dazu, eide sie wird a Bas Mitzvah, is die Mitzvah von Chinuch. And her being trained to do this even before Bas Mitzvah, before the actual Chiyuv, is part of the Mitzvah of Chinuch. So even younger than 12, she's already responsible to light Shabbos candles. Als gleich, wenn sie es scheich zu verstehen, die Wichtigkeit und dem Inhalt von der lichtiger Mitzvah, immediately as soon as she's able to understand the importance and the meaning of this luminescent mitzvah, soll sie anheben anzünden Licht jeder Erev Shabbos und Yom Tov. She should start lighting already. And you know the Rebbe encouraged girls as young as 3, and even certain occasions younger than 3, that if they can make the bracha, they should be helped to light the Shabbos candles. And that's a very important idea, that even little girls should light Shabbos candles. Okay, now, a beautiful thought here about a little girl lighting Shabbos candles. So far, we're saying that the little girl's lighting Shabbos candles and she's doing something that's the same as her mother, which is doing something that is the same as the Amoyes. Now we're going to bring out how actually the little girl is doing something in a certain way special, even more than what her mother is doing. Let's see. Das unterstreicht euch noch mehr die Wichtigkeit von der Aufführung von jeder jüdischen Mädel. Als ihr hat man übergegeben als Schliches, sie soll reinbringen die Lichtigkeit von Shabbos und Yom Tov in der ganze Haus, zusammen mit ihrer Mutter und die ältere Schwester. Okay, so it's emphasized here that she has a personal obligation. She has been given the obligation to add to the light in the home along with her mother and her older sisters. Gleich, wenn sie kommt zum Gil von Chinuch, as soon as she is of age to be educated in this, zu die Jorin, wenn mir erzieht ihr zum Mekayim sein Mitzvahs, meaning the age when she could be taught to do these things, macht sie a bracha, sie bencht dem Eibishtin, she makes a bracha, she benches Hashem, bechlal, und bim Yuchad, für dem, was hat ihr gegeben, die Schliches, zum Mekayim sein die Mitzvah, she makes a bracha, thanking Hashem for giving her this Schliches, right? Asher kedishonu, who sanctified us, b'mitzvaysav, with his command, vitzivonu, and commanded us. So this little girl is thanking Hashem for giving her this duty. Was die Mitzvah besteht, in reinbringen heilige Lichtigkeit in der ganze Haus zusammen mit ihrer Mutter und ihrer ältere Schwester. And she has this responsibility to do what? To bring light into the home, along with her mother and her older sisters. Noch mehr, but more than that. More than that. Here we're going to talk about how not only she's on par with her mother and sisters, but this cute little girl, this little munchkin, this little 3-year-old who just learned how to make a bracha, she's doing something special that she is in first place. We're going to find out. Der Minig is, the custom is, as die Mädlich sind in Licht, noch vor der Mutter. The little girl's light before the mother. And there are practical reasons for that. The simplest reason is because if the mother lights and she takes on Shabbos and she's not going to be able to help the little girls have problems with the fire sometimes. So in order that the mother can help the little girl with the fire, the mother waits until afterwards and then the mother lights so that the mother isn't Shabbosdik when the little girls need help. Okay, but here the Rebbe takes even something so practical like that and brings out something so beautiful. Kumtoi, so comes out, consequentially, is what? As die kleine Mädelach zijn de erste zu reinbringen die Lichtigkeit von der Shabbos Kedish in der Stub. So the little girl is the first to bring in the light of Shabbos into the house. Fine. How long does that last? That lasts for maybe a minute, and then the other sisters start lighting, and the mother lights. No. But it goes on. Euch nachdem wie de Mama und ältere Schwester zünden Licht, and then even afterwards, when the mother and the sisters light, bleibt bei ihr der Schuss. She still has the Schuss zu sein, die erste zu reinbringen der Lichtigkeit von der Mitzvah in Stub. She was the first. And this is so much, the psychology of a little kid, right? I was the first. I won. You want to make any kid do anything. You say, I'll time you. Let's race. Let's see who can do it first, right? Let's see who can put away their toys first. You were the first. You won. So think about the pride this little girl has, not only to know that she's bringing in light into the home just like her mother and just like the Imais, but in a certain respect, she's doing something even more than them because she was the first. Mommy, I was the first. I started it. I started the Shabbos light being in the house. Und das gerät dir zu, als wenn sie wird auswachsen und wird Chasna haben. So then this experience prepares her. She'll grow up, she'll get married, soll sie euch lichtig machen, ihr eigene Huis, als Akeres Habayis, die Balabosta von der Huis. She'll be able to do this as the Balabosta, as the Akeres Habayis of her own home. But the way we start her off is by showing her, even at a very young age, the responsibility she was given, that Hashem has given her a shlichus, that there's a duty she has, and that in a certain way, her duty is even, no pun intended, outshining the way her mother and sisters do it. Und wenn sie wird gebencht werden mit Kinder, and then when she will be blessed to have her own children, und zwischen sie euch Töchter, and among the children she'll have some daughters, soll sie erziehen, als euch sie sollen lichtig machen die Huis mit Jüdischkeit. She's going to see to it to raise her daughters the way she was raised, that they should also make the house shining with Judaism. Bis as die Huis wird werden lichtig euch in Gashmis Kipshuta, and that includes that the house should literally be, again, we're going back to Begashmis Kipshuta, like we were talking about, literally having those lights. Und durch der Ruf, and then through making the house light through Shabbos candles, lichtig machen die ganze Welt. This has a hashpah, an influence on the entire world, to make the whole world a bright place. And what does it mean the whole world's a bright place? Again, we have to assume, what does it mean? The Rebbe said, what does it mean the Shabbos candles are shining all week long in the house? It means all week long people are mindful, even though the Shabbos candles are no longer burning, but it's putting them in the right mindset, it's creating the right environment that they want to behave in a manner of ner mitzvah v'teirah. So what would it mean that the whole world is shining with this light? It means the whole world is behaving the way that they need to behave, that everybody's acting the way they're supposed to act. And that's Mashiach. Anyways, another example how the Rebbe empowers the children and just shows them what a special schus they have and how much they're doing for us. Baruch Hashem, Ashreinu.
Wow, Rabbi Tal, that was amazing.